hello, everyone. How are you? Hope you're having a fantastic time. And may peace be upon you. Thank you for watching my podcast. Yes, I can. With me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. And I have a fantastic guest today, Jessica Fox. So you may have caught her on NBC, CBS, Fox, and the CW. She's a master transformation coach, four times best-selling author, and has been interviewed on TED. And today, Jessica's going to be sharing about the Joy Compass, your guide to happiness. Hello, Jessica. Say hello to everyone.
Hey, this is so exciting. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who have not known Jessica, Jessica and I, we've been working together for over a year now, a year and a half. She's part of my team in the Top Authority Retreat. She's one of the fantastic authority coach there. And Jessica is also really passionate about mindset, mindfulness, wellness, as well as helping moms to come up with their business and be really successful in their business. So, Jess, let's start from kind of like, because I know you, so I know there's a lot that we can share. But what is this thing about the Joy Compass? First of all, what is this Joy Compass? And why is it so important in kind of directing us to the place that we want to go?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking me that. The Joy Compass is, when we think about navigating when we're lost, right? We're always told that when you're using a compass, you want it to always orient it north. And there's this aspect that if you have the idea of where your true north is, you can figure out your way from there. And when it comes to navigation, we always orient to the north. And as I've been continuing to do my work and growing this idea of what does it mean as a woman to thrive in life? So many women that you and I meet and that I've seen throughout the last 15 years of my work, there's this idea that women are drudging through life in survival mode, where we are constantly just getting through the next day, getting through the next hour, getting through the next moment. And what I have seen is that when a woman is able to shift what she is focusing on, shift how she understands how she's moving through her life, how she understands herself, how she understands her circumstance, and how she understands her internal direction, she can actually, with the right tools, start shifting into starting to thrive in life. And when a woman thrives, now, as women, we cannot separate the different aspects of who we are and the different roles in our life. Men have this beautiful, wonderful ability to compartmentalize their life. Women, we just can't. We're not created. We're not designed that way. And so what I'm seeing is this generation of women who have been taught that they should compartmentalize. We have to put on the masculine. We need to act like men.
Right.
And we can't. We try to compartmentalize and then start falling apart because each compartment starts getting neglected. And what happens is our experience of life is disjointed and confusing, and we start internalizing that to mean something about ourselves. But when a woman takes away the compartments and embraces the fact that everything about her and her life and her roles intersects and influences each other, she's able to embrace a great strength because she's embracing her natural design. And when we understand that how we do one thing is how we do everything, and start to see ourselves and how we focus on the world from a place of joy and happiness, we start to get a momentum in the direction that we want to go. I'm suggesting here that joy and happiness is actually our true north. And where this comes from is the idea, and one of the paradigms of my coaching practice and what I put forth as a coach is this: I am responsible for my own happiness.
Mhm.
I am responsible for my own happiness. And as women, we have been taught that we need to sacrifice ourselves and put everything before us. And we have been taught and have been demonstrated by the generations that have gone for us that we give everything for everybody else. Now, as women, we're naturally very nurturing and giving. But when we're doing that to the point of bitterness, anger, unhappiness, everybody suffers, including ourselves. And so I want to put forth that true thriving in life comes when we take responsibility for our own happiness, when we actually get to know our own heart, when we take the time to learn what are the things that actually bring me joy? What are the things that bring me peace? What are the things that make me happy? And we orient our decision making there, because as we grow in our joy and fulfillment and to start to thrive, the relationships that we are involved in, again, what everything intersects and influence, when we start focusing into what are those things that make me happy, what are those things that we're strong, everything rises around us and we start having a better experience of our life.
Absolutely. I think it's like a really beautiful kind of indicator, isn't it? To kind of like directing us in the place that we want to be. I think like everybody have their own kind of like set of joy or compasses. Yours is obviously joy. Mine is a freedom compass, you know.
Mm,
Whenever like I don't feel free, I feel constricted, I don't
yes.
feel safe. That's the point I know I need to get out, or I know I need to pull back or kind of put boundaries. So what is your joy compass? For those of you who are listening, what is your joy compass? What kind of like makes you feel safe or warm or fuzzy? And Jessica, you kind of touch a really important point there. Segregating things, you know, here, this, and that. And the funny thing is, I've read this book. Okay, I forgot the name of the book, and this is a man telling a woman, you can't do this, this, and this, and this. I'm like, dude, you're a man, you know, like I know how you think is this way, right? But as a woman, this is how we are. This is how we're wired. We're nurturing. Like we would drop everything for our kids.
Yep.
Like we would just, you know, everything for our kids and taking care of A, B, C, and Y. That's just how we're wired. So Jessica, you know, and you know when we're doing all that, we put everybody first, we get burned out.
Yes.
So,
I
and it's a
actually,
huge thing.
I love what you said. You know, we're calling this the joy compass, but what I want to, I love what you said here. Your compass is freedom. And so here's the thing, ladies, and what we get to do here is when we understand that we are responsible for our own happiness, we have to do the work. And I say have to, I'm not putting pressure on you, but you need to understand what your strongest value is for your best life. And that's your true north. So for me, yes, it is joy. It is joy. For you, it is freedom. For somebody else, it could be peace. But it comes with, first of all, accepting I am responsible for my own happiness. Now, if you want to be happy, you got to take responsibility. Nobody's going to make you happy, mama. Nobody's going to make you happy except for you. And true happiness comes from within, with the love and accept for ourselves, for the acknowledgement that I have been fearfully and wonderfully made, that I have dreams, passions, and purpose in this life, and giving ourselves permission to pursue a life that is fulfilled and on purpose. Now, that can look different for everybody. And I want to fill in Izdihar's point here that our compass, our true north, is that value that we know within ourselves is truly ours. So for me, it's joy. For you, it's freedom. For others, it's hope, peace, love, etc. And sometimes we have been taught to ignore that inner voice. We have been taught that, especially for those of us maybe who have been grown up in a very heavy religious aspect, we've been told, that inner voice, it's not trustworthy. But I want to suggest that, you know, the universe speaks to us constantly. Izzy and I call the universe God, and God is constantly speaking to us, and it comes from the inner voice. And when we're able to tap into that, and in the essence of the being and in our created order, what is it that drives us and that we are most connected to and value, that becomes our true north. And so while I'm saying today the Joy Compass is your guide to happiness, maybe let's switch the title a little bit and says our strongest value is our guide to happiness. And when we start taking responsibility for our happiness, we align it and say, okay, like I'm not experiencing joy, and freedom's a pretty strong one for me as well. So if I'm not experiencing joy and freedom, what are the decisions in my life that are leading me off my true north, that are causing conflict within me? And I want to suggest here for a second, negative emotions are not a bad thing. Can we just take away, I'm gonna drop a gem here, guys. Emotions are neither positive, or sorry, they have no meaning. They're not positive or negative. They only have the meaning that we put on them. And I want to suggest really strongly here that emotions are a guide for us. Emotions are a guide for us. They are there to keep us moving forward, to keep us motivated. They're there to keep us safe. They're there to create a response within our body that we get to respond to, right? And so, if we're having a good time and moving in the right direction, and we're following that sense of joy or freedom, we're going to see success. Now, and this is when we're healthy, when we're in a healthy. Now, there's lots of examples where you might be following what makes you happy, but it's not good for you. And that's something that needs to be dealt with. But when you're a relatively healthy individual, when you're following that and understanding how it's a reaffirmation that you're moving in the right direction, that's awesome. But if you're also, if you're feeling frustrated or angry or off, it's the body's way of saying, hold on, something needs to be addressed. Something needs to be addressed. And it could be, and it's just the invitation to us to slow down and say, okay, and have that conversation, grabbing our journal and saying, what is going on here? Maybe I'm angry. Maybe there's an injustice going on. Maybe my circumstances that I'm facing right now are outside of my control, and I have to surrender the fact that I can't control this, but I can control me. Maybe it's, I'm terrified of taking this next step. And then when we analyze it, it's because, hey, the fear showing up to protect us of the unknown, but we know that it's the right, so we need to push through. Or maybe we need to step back, right? And so it's really important that we pay attention to the signals that our emotions are giving to us, to the thoughts that are going on, and decide and know whether or not our emotions are guiding us in the right direction, causing us to slow down, or they're just a visceral reaction to stuff that we can't control. And we just need to take a moment and breathe and work through it, So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, because a lot of people are saying, don't be angry, don't be sad, don't cry, don't this, don't lash out. It's just an emotion. Sometimes you just need to allow it.
You have to allow them.
Correct. Allow it, give it the space, let it be witnessed. Let it be witnessed.
I love that. Yes, guys, listen. Your emotions deserve to be witnessed, because it's your thoughts and your feelings. When you, the example that I like to use is that when we're like, oh, I can't be mad, I can't be sad, I can't be happy. And by the way, guys, I actually grew up with the belief that I can't be happy. So we're all given these signals. I have a distinct memory of my brothers and I goofing around and laughing and getting in trouble because we were over exuberant. And so that produced this belief that I cannot show my excitement. And for those who know me personally, I am a very excitable person. In fact, it's one of the things that my husband loves the most about me, because he always knows when I'm excited, because I'm like a little kid. when I get excited, but we've all developed these beliefs and limiting beliefs about emotion. And part of our adult journey is unpacking that and trusting and understanding that our emotions are a good thing for us. But we can't just stuff down the negative emotions. They do need to be witnessed, because here's what happens. It's like a fire alarm. So the fire alarm is going off in your house, and you wake up and you realize your family hasn't woken up. So what are you going to do? You're going to start going to those rooms and getting like ripping off blankets because everybody's sleeping and going, you guys, there's a fire in the house. Now you might be, we're not going to be frantic because we don't want to scare anybody, but we're like, hey, like, get up. We got to get out of here. There's an emergency. Like, this needs to be addressed. We need to get out. And then our family just grabs the blanket and rolls over. Well, what's going to happen? You are going to get more frantic. You are going to be like, no, get up now, get out, like, let's go. And then they just roll over again because they don't believe that this needs to be witnessed, that doesn't need to be addressed. And what do? We start screaming and yelling and dragging people out of the house. Our emotions are the same way. When we stuff and ignore our emotions, they start screaming at us in other ways. It could be physically, it could be mentally, it could be in our circumstance. It could, like, emotions are going to come up. It could, and how we see it often showing up is in perfectionism, in overwhelm, in avoidance, or even at times in pushing ourselves and needing to prove ourselves and overexertion, right? And then it can also show up in sickness, as it did in my own self. And so we need to understand that our emotions, when they are witnessed, they serve their purpose and then they go. Now, this does not apply if you are neurodivergent or if you're dealing with mental illness. That's a whole different thing. But for those that are relatively in their mind, if you're not dealing with other issues, that's typically what goes on.
Absolutely. And I think it's just emotions and everything is energies, and it's a law of physics. Once it's being witnessed, then you have the opportunity or the awareness to transform it
Exactly.
to something else. Like love to hate, hate to love, sadness to joy. There's a steps to kind of transform those emotions to it. But I think the first step is people suppress allowing it to be witnessed, allowing it to be heard, allowing it to be nourished, allowing yourself to be nourished. So just while we're on this topic, have you got like a couple of hacks or couple of tips or couple of routine to kind of like having our joy compass or tuning into the joy compass? For example, is it meditation for you? Is it walking in nature for you? Is it taking a bubble bath for you? What are the tips that any woman that are listening to can start to get in tune with their compass, whether it's joy, it's freedom, it's hope, it's safety, it's love? What are the tips that you can share?
I love that. I love that question. One tip that I have is to, and this goes both ways, because, it's easy to move forward when we're in the positive, but sometimes we can over respond to the positive as well. And so, I want to, when to tune into our joy compass, a really important aspect of this is, again, that witnessing both negative and positive and saying, okay, what am I feeling? But more than that, what are the thoughts that I'm having right now? And when we become aware, we need to observe of ourselves. So, the emotions is that internal, what we observe within ourselves. And then the next question is, what am I observing of myself? So what are the what are the thoughts that I am thinking? And in my work with belief and habit, the habit of belief and thought, understanding and being able to ask the question, what am I thinking? So I'm experiencing this emotion. So what are the thoughts that are triggering this emotion? And becoming uniquely, intimately aware of the internal conversation that's going on. Because when we train ourselves to think about what we're thinking about, it gives us more control of that inner dialogue. And especially when it comes to the negative things, it's important that we don't let the internal dialogue become subconscious belief because that happens when we kind of lose control of it, right? So both good and bad, what is the internal dialogue? And then, analyzing that. I do this through journaling personally. I also do this through meditation, but not only observing the internal dialogue, but saying, okay, is this thought true? Is it true? Is it in alignment with my dreams and visions and desires? Is it representative of my best self? And when we're able to ask that of really powerful thoughts that we're feeling, and then if it's not, going back, well, what is true? What is in alignment? And what is representative? And this is a really powerful example of how to change our thought patterns, because your brain is constantly forming and reforming. And so just because you might be thinking a certain way right now doesn't mean that can't change. And it comes through intentional practice. So as I said, like, I do this through journaling. I do this through affirmations. So having things that I can read on a regular basis that are right in front of me to remind me of the thoughts that I do want to have. And when I am really, really in a funk and I'm having a hard time to switch out, I personally get my body moving. That for me always helps me switch, because it's what it's doing is it's basically, because when you get your body moving, the brain starts triggering in a different way. And that often helps me switch out of that. And great music and dancing and laughing. That's another way when to help switch the neurochemistry that's going on.
That is so cool to know. Like, and Jazz does a lot of journaling, meditation, and it depends on whatever resonates with you. Like for
Yep.
me, journaling, I it's not for me. I now am the point where I just talk, right? I call up my friends or call up people. Hey, I just need to talk, or I cry. It's just whatever. A prayer is one of the things for me too. I would just
Yeah.
literally pray and head on the ground. God help me. And there's so many things to shift your thoughts, your emotions, your feeling. Once you witnessed it, there are the steps to kind of shift it. And then that's when you allow that space, then you get to listen to your compass.
Exactly.
Now, the trick question here is just, right? Your compass is telling you one thing, but logically, or the people around you is telling you another thing. There's going to be this conflict. Should it this? Should it that? In making a decision, for example, right? For example, a decision to work with someone, or to work with, to buy something, or to go somewhere. What's the next step in your course? So your heart is telling you one thing, or your compass is telling you one thing, and then this external, the logics, the numbers, the people around you are telling you one thing. So what is your best advice? I know it doesn't fit all, but what is your best advice or tips in navigating through that situation?
Beautiful. Again, going back to my original statement, I'm responsible for my happiness. And here's the thing, again, when your compass, when your gut, when you're is saying, no, trust it. Again, we have been, in our society, we have been taught to be so cerebral that we have dumbed down that gut knowing. And it takes some time. Now, sometimes, like, we can be thinking about it and we can have that, like, and again, it's that internal conversation. And I love how you're like, I talk to people without inviting them to give their opinion, where if you need to verbally process. If you need to, but if your gut's reaction is yes or no, it's right. Because your soul knows what's best for you. Your soul, we need to learn to trust that inner knowing, to trust our soul. And you guys, you can look at the evidence throughout your life when you didn't say yes or you didn't say no, and the consequence. A perfect example for me was the first time, and I've talked about this before, when Izdihar invited me into a book project. Now, I am a person who needs about 24 hours. I'm learning that about myself. It is not in my best interest to make a snap decision. I need 24 hours to sleep on it, and then I will know that I know that I know. And so when Izzy invited me into my first book project, which is right here, it's Yes, I Can. Obviously, I participated. My gut went, yes, this is it. But sometimes I was like, but you know what? I do want to give myself that 24 hours because, I just needed to sleep on it. And 24 hours later, I was still a hard yes. And the next day when Izzy followed up with me, she hadn't realized that I had already signed up. So, and she followed up and she's like, so did you have a chance to think about it? I said, actually, if you check your thing, I've paid you, I'm in. So, and when we again, this is about knowing ourselves. And so, like I said, I'm a person who needs 24 hours. And especially if I'm on the fence, sometimes I'm a yes, but I give myself a breath. And then I can, that yes is confirmed, right? Sometimes it's a no. And when I've been a no and I said yes anyway, I've regretted it. And so, because I talked myself into it. And so this is about knowing yourself and about standing firm for what's best for you, taking responsibility for your own happiness. And frankly, it doesn't matter what somebody else says because you know you better than anybody else. And don't let anybody tell you something. Like, how many of us have had parents who said, I know you better than you know yourself? Actually, that's complete fallacy, but that's another story.
Awesome. And I love that you said about, okay, you make a decision and then, oh, it's not the right one for you. Because Brian Tracy in his book said that we make mistakes 70% of the time. I mean, it's not really comforting, isn't it? 70% out of the time, 3 out of 4, you make a mistake. But it's not like about making the mistakes. It's so much about who you become, what you've learned.
Yep.
How is it gonna fine tune your compass into nothing. I feel like nothing is a mistake, but actually a blessing if you look at it in a particular angle.
Exactly.
Okay, I've learned this and this and this and this. Okay, not that person anymore. Oh yes, that way, and moving it this way. So just kind of like to wrap up our discussion, our joy compass, or our own internal compass. Some people are so scared, even though it's like a really, really clear sign. Their heart, their body, everything, mind, body, logic, everything moves in the right direction, but they're just so scared, for whatever reason. So, and then in that moment, it's either they go forward or they pull back, right? It's those two things. So, and either way is absolutely your choice, whichever way that you want to be moving, either forward or pull back, is absolutely your choice. But kind of, can you give like a little wisdom, Jess, in kind of when you're so scared, but it's right for you, it's meant for you.
So
fear,
fear is a beautiful emotion. Why? Isn't that interesting? I just said fear is a beautiful emotion because fear comes from the place of safety. So fear's job is to keep us safe and keep us alive, always. And so what fear does is it releases stress hormones in our body, which creates fight, flight, or freeze, right? And the whole purpose of fear is to keep us alive. And so one exercise that I learned several years ago is what's the worst can happen. And you can do that. So I'm feeling afraid. I have an opportunity to participate in a book project. I've always wanted to be an author. I know it's right, but I'm afraid. Well, what's the worst can happen? Well, I could do it and I made the investment. Okay, so you made the investment. What's the worst can happen? Well, I could lose my job or lose my clientele and I have no money. So becoming an author made me broke. all my money went into, oh, well, what's the worst that could happen if you became broke? Well, I could lose my house. Well, okay, so you lose your house. What's the worst could happen? Well, I could have to live in my car. Well, then what's the worst could happen? I'm still broke. Okay, what's the worst can happen? Well, I don't have enough money for food. And you go down, and ultimately the worst thing that could happen, your brain is telling you that you could die, literally. Like, fear is to keep you from dying, guys. And so this is, and it's coming from our survival center in our brain known as the ego. And so this is why we're human. We have a higher functioning brain up here, the frontal cortex, the limbic system, and we just get to say, relax. I know you're afraid. I know you think we're going to die, but you know what? We got this. And you get to have this internal conversation with ourselves, because literally fear is keeping you from death. I'm not joking. That is its purpose. And so you need to use your higher part of your brain and have an internal conversation and say, actually, no, this is what's right for us. We know it's scary. We don't know what the outcome is, but I am capable. The worst that could happen is not going to happen. So we're going to move forward anyway. And you literally, you get a choice to override that. And you can remind yourself of the times that you gave into the fear and you missed out, or recognize that sometimes stepping through that fear is the bravest thing that we can do.
Absolutely. And you're capable of so much more.
Yeah.
You think of something, but actually, you've got it covered. Actually, you have more than enough. Actually, you've got the people around you. And that is also the key, right, Jazz, to your compass. Like, you want to have your trusted circle, is what I call people who's going to be with you, who's going to take care of you, support you. Even if you have crazy dreams, they're going to be like, okay, what is it about? How are you going to get there?
Yep.
And allow you to cry and laugh and be angry and allow you that space. And I think Jess and I would agree, like, over the years, our circle have become so narrow that we only have just a few people in our lives because, of the things that we've gone through, people hurt us and all those things. And I think I want to kind of end it with that. You want to create like people that you trust, like Jess and I, we're part of a team, right? We meet every week, it doesn't happen just today. All right, just let's do it. We build it up over time and create that trust circle so that you put a boundary in. And I think the beautiful thing about us is, especially in our group, our Top Authority Activation Retreat, we created that intimate and safe space.
Exactly.
For any woman to grow. So just let's wrap it up then. Okay, kind of like, what's your number one advice of people from here now on using their compass as the primary? Obviously you have other compasses too, but what would be your biggest advice in women having the faith, having the courage, having the trust to use that?
Give yourself permission to use it.
Spot on. That couldn't be like any more thing than that. Give yourself permission and allow it to guide you. I think, like, there's this saying that I always remember: the mind is the biggest trickster, but the heart never lies. If your heart loves someone, it's gonna start telling you the direction, or it becomes really peaceful, calm when you make a decision. So just let's leave with one key action that anybody can take today in using or in finding the joy compass.
Yeah. So my question for you today is, what is that number one value that is your true north? And take the time, whether that's in prayer, meditation, journaling, and ask yourself the question, what is my one true north value? So, and it's going to be something positive. It's going to be something that impacts, and it's going to be something that when you are not experiencing that, your emotions and brain go crazy. But when you're in it, everything's flowing.
Beautiful. So, Jess, how and when people can reach out to you? What's the best way that people can say, Jess, I love to connect with you?
Yes. So on my website, happyandfreetobeme.com. There is a book a call link, and that is a great way to get a hold of me. Or jessicafoxcoaching@gmail.com is my direct email, and I am more than happy. So happyandfreetobeme.com or jessicafoxcoaching@gmail.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica, for having us today. And Jessica's books, Ambitious Woman Rise, are available on Amazon and happytobeme.com. So reach out to her. She's fantastic. And Jessica, let's say bye to everybody. And thank you so much for joining me today. And until the next episode, tell yourself, yes, I can. And so it is done. Thank you, darlings. Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye.